everyone. Welcome to another episode of What is Your Story? My name is Louis from Service Zoom Marketing Agency. Welcome, Daniel, to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? So, Daniel, tell
Mm.
us about and share with us the story behind the creation of Rescue and Residence. What inspired you to start this?
Yeah, so the how it got started story kind of goes back a long ways. So when I was a teenager, I was actually homeless for a while, and I would go from either sleeping on a mass transit system. So we had a bus and a rail system in Portland, Oregon, that would run from east to west mostly, and I would
Mm-hmm.
get on it at one end and like go to sleep on there because it would run 24 hours and ride it all the way to the other end basically, and then someone would come along like, hey. You didn't get off at any point, like, oh, I must have missed my stop, and then I'd go back to sleep as they would ride it the other way, and I'd get some sleep there in an area where it's a little more public, a little more safe. It's a little bit at least it made me feel safer. I would sleep under some bridges at a skate park. I would sleep in the back of Goodwill trucks every once in a while. That
Mm-hmm.
was one of the places um, where things were comfortable as well too, so it kind of made it a little bit easier to do. But the preponderance of the time I would spend doing what I've learned as I'm going through this process, learning more and more about helping those experiencing homelessness, is that teenagers in general do what's called couch surfing, and that's
Mm-hmm.
still considered homelessness. They don't feel safe in their home, or they don't have a home. They don't have a family that they can stay with. So then they kind of lean on their friends. They go from this friend's house and sleep at their house, and then they go to another friend's house, and they kind of rotate through them,
Yeah.
trying to keep themselves from feeling like they're putting too much of a burden on. And I definitely experienced that as a teenager, and so not really realizing it as much, I guess. As I got older and not really thinking back to that time as much, it kind of went to the back of my mind. But in 2021, right at the beginning of the year, decided with a friend, another Marine who'd been out for a long time, that we were going to start a podcast. So we started a podcast and we talked about social issues. We did things on like, what is the different construction for the government? Like, what are the different forms of government? What is our roles as citizens, and what's our relationships with other people in that society? And so
Right.
my degrees are all in political science. And so those were kind of the core concepts we were talking about. We talk about school districts. We would talk about redlining, and what we realized was that no matter what our main topic was, almost
Yeah.
every single episode we would talk about homelessness and how it was affecting different cities and society and America pretty badly right now. And what I kind of decided part of the way through it was, I've experienced this myself. I think I have a unique perspective, and I came up with kind of a unique solution. And I decided that I needed to start doing something about it instead of just talking about it. So I decided to take action and established my own nonprofit, because the first step in establishing a nonprofit is to try not to start a nonprofit, because trust me, you don't want to.
Yep.
The idea is there something else that is doing what this idea is? Is there someone else already doing what I want to do, and can I just help them because they've already established it? That's a very difficult thing to do, and there is not. Unfortunately, there's nothing doing the kind of concept I'm talking about, so
Mm-hmm.
I had to start it.
Interesting. So elaborate a little bit about the nonprofit. The what is Rescue and Residence? What is it? What when I met you, you told me it's about taking retired ambulances, right, and turning them into a mobile homes for uh, homeless
Yeah, that's
veterans. So
yeah,
I'd
that's
love to hear more about that.
it's definitely the like attention gramming feature of it.
Hmm.
We are going to use exclusively ambulances that are retired. No other kinds of vehicles, because it comes up a lot too. Is like, why not use these? Why not use those?
Hmm.
And there's a pretty good reason for it, and we can go over that. But we are going to be working with the veteran who is experiencing homelessness at the end of the program. The last stage in their program is to actually design and build to their own personal specifications their own home in the back of a retired ambulance. So they'll then be able to take um, a new skill, a trade skill that they've learned while they've been going through our programs, and then this home that they can now drive as well, and move into a new location somewhere in the country,
Yeah.
and kind of get a new fresh start with a trade skill and a home to live in. And by moving to a new location, it really gives them a better chance at a fresh start. So there are several government auction websites. So whenever any government organization owns
Hmm.
property that they no longer have in service or has passed its particular service life, which a lot of times does not mean it's not functioning and not perfectly good condition. A lot of times vehicles with most government organizations have like a 5-year timeline. You're going to have them for 5 years and you're putting it up for auction, getting a new one, or 10 years. So they set kind of an arbitrary, we'll call it, timeline. And no matter what happens to that vehicle in that timeline, as long as it's still functioning at that point, then they can auction it off. So you can get pretty good ones at auction.
That's pretty cool.
So we got our first one at auction almost by accident. That's a fun story if you want to have that one too. That first ambulance has a pretty good story. So I started the organization in December of 2021. In January of 2022, I started doing some research to kind of figure out this part we just basically answered. How do I get ambulances? So I started looking at auction sites and doing some more research, contacting ambulance sourcing companies like AmbuNet and some others. And I'm just at the time doing research, right? So I'm going through, I'm hitting watch on like all the ambulances I can see. So I figure out what they sell for and I like write it down. I'm like, okay, this year with this many miles and this kind of engine sells for this much. And so I create this kind of list. And so I'm keeping track and starting to get a pretty good idea of what I can expect to spend on them.
That's cool.
And so I was like, well, if I find one that's just this amazing deal and it's like right at the end of the auction and I know I want to get it,
yeah.
If it takes 48 hours to even get into the system or be able to bid or get your accounts verified or do any of that stuff, I don't want to be in that position. So I was like, let me make sure that I'll be able to bid. Let me get all the way to where I know that I can bid on an item and receive notifications that I've been outbid or whatever, right? So I go ahead, I find one that's still pretty early in its auction. Is still really low, and I know based on my chart of stuff, right, it should sell for $15,000 or $20,000. So I was like, let me put a bid in at put a bid in $5,000, and I know I'll get outbid, and then I can see, okay, I get this email when I bid. I need to have this account linked, which I did have to do. I had to have my bank account linked to it, and it wouldn't let me bid. So it was pretty good that I got that done. And then I never got outbid. It just went like it's going. I'm like, oh. And this was 2 weeks into the organization. I don't have money. Like I had just gotten started. So I'm trying to figure this out. So auction close, I got up like calling people, hey, I need $5,000. We got to figure out how to pay for this thing now. And it's in Ohio. I'm not in Ohio. We're in California. So I'm like, how do we take care of that? So we luckily had a guy that on my board, he knows this guy who's in Ohio, who's like a Michelin star chef or whatever. He was on the TV show that was like the food truck challenge or whatever. That got second place or something. So I mean, he's this amazing chef that he knew, and he was like, yeah, I'll go pick it up. And he just parked it at his house. And so eventually we were able to fly out to Ohio in August of last year of 2022, drive it back with 3 of us. We drove nonstop 43 hours in August, cross country, no air conditioning. So that's
oh man.
It was definitely interesting.
That is interesting. Non-stop, no air conditioning.
Yep, didn't stop. So we had 3 of us. So with an ambulance, right, there's the bench kind of in the back. So one of us would sleep in the back and one would be in the passenger seat, one would be driving, and then we'd rotate. And we just didn't stop driving, just drove all the way through.
That's cool. So, all right, speaking about how you convert these ambulances, right? So what are some of the challenges you've experienced to convert them into these mobile homes?
We're still really, really new, right? So I'm converting to our very first one, that same one that we drove back right now.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of research. There are a lot of really great videos giving tutorials on how these conversions happen. And actually, there's enough ambulance conversions already out there that my plan is in December, we're hosting a major event to try to bring all of the ambulance conversion folks that are out there, like the whole community, as many as who will come and visit with us.
In September, an event you said, or December?
December
Okay.
8th through the 10th is when we're planning to host our big annual fundraiser, like a weekend-long music festival with the ambulance conversions being like the focal point of it, and get to show off a lot of these really cool builds that we haven't got to where we have a bunch of our own to show off yet, but the community is great, and these people will show off their builds and kind of get people's head wrapped around this idea. The first challenge is that they're very heavy to begin with, so there's a lot of extra materials and stuff to turning into making it an ambulance versus just being a house. So we start generally by needing to remove a lot of stuff, and that's kind of, I'm almost done with that stage. I'm not even at the actually get a chance to build it up stage yet. And then I guess the next challenge is funding it. So it is an expensive kind of process. So between solar panels and battery systems, got to put some kind of fridge and a cooking area and a sink, right? So, and then my plan is that all of them will also have a shower and a toilet, which those aren't too expensive to build out. It's generally the batteries really and the solar panels that suck up a lot of the cost.
Yeah, it's very expensive. Well, I had the pleasure of seeing your prototype, start from nothing to really like almost done now.
Yeah.
At the show that we have at Indian Wells Southwest Church called Love Local, you brought your ambulance a few times, several times, as a matter of fact. And I love seeing it from nothing to now. It's just so beautiful. I just cannot wait to see your end result.
Yeah, and it's not the method I'll take for any future design, but knowing that we're so early and that I'm doing this piecemeal, I'm still active duty and working in this office, on a regular given day. So I only get the extra time I can to really work.
Thank you for your services, by the way.
You're worth it.
What is the future for Rescue and Residence?
We actually ended up with this really, really huge opportunity. So I was able to locate a very unique, and I can't give a lot of the details about it, funding source. I had to propose basically a bigger plan than I'd ever really put together at this stage. And
if you tell me, you have to kill me, right?
No, they just
just kidding.
Might not fund my program, so I don't want to do that. But
no, we need the funding.
Yeah,
for sure.
So they told me like, hey, tell us what your current plan would take for funding. Yeah. And I kind of had already put together a plan for a site that would have like parking for 6 ambulances and just enough amenities to support them while they lived there. And then our workshop. That was really like the whole thing. And then funding our staff. And basically between managing and paying for that property and converting 12 ambulances and paying the staff, it was $2 million for 2 years. And at that point, it would have been solvent. We would have been self-sustaining and would be able to run without funding. And this funder was like, that's not enough. It's like smallest projects are 10 million. You need to go bigger, like figure out a bigger plan. And so I was like, okay. So I started scaling up, and at every instance conversation between me and them, it was like, no, go a little bigger, go a little big, do a little more. So it ends up now, and this is the final plan that I submitted, was an 80-acre property with 110 permanent house units on it. So those would be cabins, anywhere from 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom down to 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom small units. So we could support families who need it when they move in. But also what's cool about those 3-bedroom, 2-bathrooms is each of the rooms, the bedrooms, have an individual outside door. So if I don't need capacity for a family, I can also put 3 individuals into it, and they can share the kitchen and bathroom spaces. So it gives us a lot of flexibility with those buildings. 50 RV parking spots, and that's just the start. So 50 RV parking spots, a community center, an American Legion managed veteran training center, our ambulance conversion workshop, and an event center. The community center will include sports facilities like basketball, tennis courts, and a gym itself, and like a convenience store, because it's basically going to run a lot like a campground. That's kind of how we're going to actually permit it and do everything else with it. So all in all, put it together. It's a over 5 years build plan and fund plan. It's a $53 million project, and it got funded.
It did?
It did. Yeah. Our program got selected. So.
Oh my God. Congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah. It's kind of exciting. I honestly am kind of still pinching myself, not 100% sure it's real. But that's where we are going forward, and then grow from there, right? So get this up, get it solvent, and then my plan is to try to build one of these outside of every major metropolitan area, somewhere within 3 to 4 hours worth of a drive, so we could do major outreach in the cities, say come out to the rural area, come live on our ranch, go through our entire process, and then move on into somewhere else in the country with a new trade skill and a new place to live.
Well, congratulations. That is amazing story.
Thank you. I'm so glad. News to you. See a real surprise face. You didn't know.
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I'm like, what? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I am so thankful that your dreams are coming true, honestly, Daniel. So, you know what? I'm just gonna put out your QR code on the screen for everybody to scan your website and check it out. And your can you tell everybody how they can reach you, and what can we help you with? What do you need from us?
Yeah, so right now, everything's on our website. So if you go to rescueresidence.org, across the top is all of our social media, and we have something everywhere. So if there's a social media type that you like, you can get in touch with us through those. I will say, like, TikTok is usually just video announcements similar to what we have on Instagram. Haven't done a whole lot of TikTok specific content, but we will eventually get there. But you can still contact us through there. So pretty much any of them, if you message on it, I can respond very quickly. Right now, we're actually running a live auction.
I was just gonna ask you that, actually, because I heard you're running an auction.
Yeah, we started.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I ran a 24-hour live stream from the 3rd to the 4th of July, with the intent originally being
24 hours.
I was online for 24 hours, live stream on YouTube.
That's a lot of coffee, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of coffee and energy drinks, and eventually beers. And that's the last couple of hours was the beers. So it was just interesting. But like it did not end up the way I kind of expected it to end up, which was enough people coming to really close out all the auctions in that 24-hour period. So I extended it 24 more hours. I was like, I'm going to sleep, but the auctions will remain open. And they still didn't hit reserve on quite a few items that a lot of people seemed really interested in, but they didn't meet the reserve on those items. So I opened it back up. It's open for a whole week right now, from Sunday, basically a couple of days ago, until this coming Sunday. So it'll end on the 31st of July at midnight. And these are all like very patriotic 4th of July looking kinds of themed items. And what I'm realizing is, we learn from all of these experiences, and the more I do to try to do more for the organization, I realize I need to adjust a little. I think that's what humans are supposed to do. So what I would really do is next year, my plan is I'll do this for the month of June, with it ending a week before the 4th of July, so I can send you your patriotic item so you could display it on the 4th of July. Like starting it on the 4th of July and then be like, cool, you won this thing that you're not going to have for a week. Dang it. I probably should have done this before
we should have. Thanks, Daniel, for coming on the show of What Is Your Story. I'm your host, Louis Sarkis, and I want to hear you guys' story. Reach out to me. I want to show the world your story.